welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, Visionaries, and welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an arena specialist, deck-building visionary, or just like having a bit or a lot of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. I'm Grant Gould, your first host that you hear from every week. Joining me from across the vast North American continent is your favorite Canadian and mine, Eve Martin. How you doing tonight, Eve?
You should start with something like, I am your captain, your leader, the steerer of the ship of this podcast that talks about Hearthstone. Just lean into it.
Lean into it. You know, I think I just suffer from a little bit of anxiety in that particular regard. I'd like to think of myself as a leader. Maybe I'm in charge of this and that. But then I start thinking about, but that means I have responsibility. That means that if something goes south, I'm the one that, where the buck stops. And, it's not easy
true.
being in charge, so all of you who are in charge of stuff, I kind of get it.
See, here's the thing that happened with Velen's Chosen, right? Is that me and Andrew and Rob started it.
Mhm.
And then Andrew left, and then you came on, and then Rob left. And through all of the changes, there was always I've been here the longest, so technically maybe it should have been my job to step up and be like, okay, I'm going to lead the show. But I find it so much easier to respond than to lead.
Well, I think it's just sort of where our roles sort of kind of fell. I don't know that you and I ever thought, well, okay, you're in charge and I'll follow. Or it's just kind of we just made the show more like, well, let's just talk, and here I'll just read the opening thing, and I'll try to tee people up as best I can. And
Yeah,
you're
good at teeing people up.
teeing
that
people
even
up
a
or teeing them
saying?
off. Well, Rob used to say that, which is actually, I like the term, right? Because if you're thinking golf, right, you're just putting the tee, you're putting it in the ground, you're setting the ball. It's like, all right, hit it. I just put it there, hit it.
Right.
No, but I'll be honest, shout out to our good buddy Rob May. I definitely was taking notes when we were talking about, how to ask questions, and all those post-show conversations we had back in the day when we would have the show, we'd turn off the stream and then talk for 2 hours, and stuff like that.
This is a surprise to people who guest on the show, because we end the recording and then they expect that they're going to leave, and then they just get pulled into this endless conversation that goes on. We're like, we should probably let you go. We've been talking for 2 hours after we stopped recording.
Yeah, so if you ever guest on Velen's, it's like a 2-hour, 3-hour commitment.
Yep. We'll have you and we won't let you go. And then we'll have you on again.
Well, yeah, you can't ever come on just one time. Hopefully it's an enjoyable enough experience to where it's like, oh gosh, I hope those Velen's people don't ask me to come on the show again, because man, they just won't shut up.
We try and give you a little bit of time, and then we pulled you right back in.
So, well, speaking of I don't know, that was
you're trying to make a segue.
I was trying to make a segue. Ladies and gentlemen, today this has been the last week of school, and it has been a doozy of a week for me. Not bad, just a doozy.
Did you get a lot of presents? Do people still do that? They give teachers presents,
no, they do.
Cards?
They do. Well, we have Teacher Appreciation Week, which happens late in the year, and that there's of course holidays and stuff. But in my area, socioeconomically, most of the people don't really think that much of teachers to give them presents. I mean, we get nice little things from time to time. In fact, the chair I'm sitting in right now was a present from a gift to a couple students a couple years ago. I lost my office chair somehow. I don't remember what the situation was, but I'd mentioned it, and a couple awesome students. Some of them listen to the show, so thanks, guys. They said, we want to get you an office chair, and so they got me. They went on Amazon and found me an office chair, and I'm still using it to this day. That was really nice and generous and touching. And honestly, I don't expect things from people. So anytime somebody wants to, whether it's a drink from Sonic or gift card to Starbucks or a sweet office chair that I can use over and over and over again
Here in
to make my
Canada,
podcast. But it's not. Some schools are better about it than others, but I think it has to do with affluence and how they value teachers. That's where I think it comes down to.
well, I mean, it might also have to do with the, how do I put this gently? How much money the parents have. There we go. I
Yep.
just said it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
For us, my mom made every one of our teachers a loaf of bread, handmade, baked
Heck
by
yeah.
herself. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And they seem to enjoy that. So I'm like, dang it, I can't cook. What do I do?
Well, making bread, just the labor to make a loaf of bread is actually fairly intensive.
Well, she's
If
been
you've
doing
never
it for
made bread
50
from scratch.
years, so she could do it with like her eyes closed and it would still be fine.
I'll bet you she's a pro at it.
Oh, she's so good. Her
Is
her
that the sh-
buns are just famous in the Okanagan. Grandma's buns. Because she has like 30 grandchildren. Seriously, no joke.
30.
Yeah, I come from a family of 8, right? 8 children,
Mhm,
and then they got
mhm.
married and they had kids, and a couple of them took after my mom, let's just say, and decided they were going to try and beat her record. So yeah, she's got lots of grandchildren, and she still makes them all buns.
That's awesome.
It's amazing what we're talking about right now.
But no, that's cool though, because like I really think it's neat when families hand down those kinds of traditions and they just kind of carry on. Nobody says you have to do it, but they do it because they want to. You know what I mean?
Well, she loves her grandchildren, but she does not have enough money to buy every single one of them like a Christmas present and a birthday present every time.
No,
So
definitely
she
not.
would make them food. She'd make them muffins and squares and stuff like that, and a way to show them love without a big dollar sign. So, and we all really appreciate it because she's a great cook. Unfortunately, I did not inherit the gene, whichever gene it is.
Yeah. Well, not
I
everybody
burn
can.
water.
You burn water.
I mean,
I've
like
never
when
heard-
you're boiling water on the stove and then you forget it and it boils all the
Yeah.
way down to the bottom and it's gone and then the pot burns. That's what I mean.
You know what? There's hope for you. My mom told me that when she got married, she couldn't cook a TV dinner. Like, it didn't make it out of the microwave without being like on fire. And my Dutch grandmother pulled my mom aside and said, "Honey, your husband, food matters to him. Let me help you." So my Dutch grandmother pulled her aside and taught her to like do these recipes, do them like this. And my mom was teachable, so she could do it. And now my mom, like, that's her jam, like food and cooking and stuff. And she really likes it.
Beautiful. You really
It's
can
beautiful.
change your stars.
It is possible. It is definitely possible for all of you who think that it can never be changed. But the irony about this is that she can't really cook the way she wanted to, because since my dad had a heart attack, they're all on a like, all right, we got to change our diet. So
No more pierogies.
yeah, that's not happening anymore. So whatever. Because my mom would cook like sort of a Western Europe style, heavier food
Yeah.
kind of style of cooking. And what the
Now
weird
it's
thing
like
about
salads.
that is, yeah, it's like salads and no genetically modified food of any kind that they're trying to get out of that. And anyways, so enough about my family. I guess we're here to talk about Hearthstone at some point in time. You
Right. What we were talking about before the show. Oh, right. I was asking if I could play Druid again. And you know what? I was actually reading Valen's Chosen Chatter before I got on. And
Mhm.
Samurai Flea was like, it's weird seeing Eve asking to play Druid. I think some space aliens grabbed the true Eve and this is a pod person.
You're a pod person. Oddly enough, on a podcast. I wonder if there's a connection.
I am
Oh,
one of
boy.
those gamers who loves to do all the things and have all the things and check all the boxes. And my Druid is
Mhm.
not even leveled up to 60 yet, which means I don't have all of the golden cards associated with leveling a Druid up to 60. And I, of course, don't have a golden Druid. So ever since a friendly neighborhood listener gifted me the Druid Lunara. Lunara. It's been easier because she has a lot of cool emotes.
Uh-huh.
I can't win every game. It's just
She's a
like
pretty positive dryad.
right. It's just kind of easier to deal with. So I was asking Grant, with the resurgence of Hunter in the meta, whether I would be able to play Druid again with all of the rogue nerfs coming down the pipe. And it sounds hopeful. So
Yeah, Rogue has been strangely absent on the ladder from my experience. I've seen a few, and I've been like you, Eve. I've kind of done the thing of like I just need to just buckle down and get all the things. I'm 100 and no, I'm 95 wins away from Golden Warrior. So,
Ooh.
and then I'll have all 9 golden classes.
That
And
could
it's like,
take you a year.
at the rate
That's
Warrior
a
games
warrior
go,
joke.
heck yeah. Oh, I mean, so it's like I just kind of just decided that all right, I'm gonna just play Hearthstone. Last time I ground out a class, in like I wonder if I'll hit Legend or grind out a class to go to 500 first. Was when I hit Legend and Wild for the first time with Priest, and I played Big E Priest, and I actually hit Legend way faster than I ground out the 100 games that I needed. So that was cool, but now it's like with Warrior, the thing is, even big Priest games don't take a half an hour. In fact, they oftentimes don't even take 10 minutes because sometimes you just have a wall of obsidian statues, and well, you're not getting through that, Charlie. Uh,
Mm.
so, but like Warrior, like I played Warrior Mirrors, and I'm getting more proficient at them. It's like so, as a learner, it's like, oh, I'm getting better at this. I actually kind of know what to do now when I'm playing these longer games, so that when I lose, I'm not totally just raging mad because I just played a 40-minute game. And I'm playing Bomb Warrior because I just like watching bombs randomly pull out of the deck and blow up in their
I
face.
think it's the funner of the different archetypes for sure, even to play against. It's like at least this will be over at some point.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun because sometimes you just win a game because they drew 3 bombs in a row and they did 15 damage out of nowhere. And you're just like,
Yep.
hey, serendipity, baby, But I've been doing that, but what I've been seeing is Hunter of various stripes. I've been seeing a lot of Warrior, and that's kind of it. Like it's very and Mage here and there, but I think Druid has a chance to come back in the meta. And the reason I say that is, unless Warrior gets Warpath, it's easy to smoke them if you can get a wide enough board. I've seen some interesting Druid builds where they kind of tech more for the late game, like just later cards. Like somebody was playing an Ancient of War. I don't know what an Ancient of War
That
is
is
doing in
not
a
a
token
deck that I want to play.
Just like your
My theory when it comes to Hearthstone decks, and this is probably just me, is you have to go all in on whatever your win condition is. And the more you
Mhm.
tech and the more you kind of go half in on this and half in on that, the less consistent your deck is. And that might be an aggro mindset. I completely understand if that's what it is, but like the more I was trying to go, I'll put this in just in case this happens, and I'll put this in for a better chance here, the less it was like the cards I needed when I needed them. So I just went all in on the make a big board, buff it up, and kill you with it. And so against Warrior, I would run them out of removal. Like they would use all of their things, and I would still have a couple more spell. What are they called again? Twin spell
Twin
of the
spells.
treants that are like 6 of them.
Yeah,
it
that thing
has?
is ridiculous.
Yeah. So you can have 4 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you run them out, then it's just like you only have to deal with Dr. Boom, which is bad enough, honestly. But I
Yeah.
could still beat them. It was just Rogue that was like outvaluing me so much, where they could remove a whole bunch of stuff and then also give themselves a board and then also do damage to my face, which was like, how much mana do you have? How many cards do you have? I would just be sitting on the other side of the board going, you're still playing things? You're not done yet? Like I got to play 2 cards this turn, and that was what I was able to do, and you're just continuing to do stuff over there. So it felt very frustrating to be like, how can I only do this much with my mana and cards, and you can sit over there and just like infinite value me? So I'm happy that Rogue is not huge in the meta right now. I think it might be because people were looking for an excuse not to play it. Because
What do you
hear
mean,
me
like-
out, the real tryhards go, if I want to be competitive, I have to play this deck because it's the best deck. But it might not even be my favorite. I might be sick and tired of it, but like I'd be stupid not to play it if I want to get to Legend, want to X, Y, Z. But now that it's
Right.
been nerfed, it's like, okay, I don't have to play it anymore. I have all these other options I can try out.
Well, Do you want to get into like what some of the changes are in case anybody's been living under a rock?
Yeah, do we want to start with the buffs or the nerfs?
Well, that's sort of the news of the day, right? And let's just start with the nerfs, just because that'll be easy to get through.
Right.
But yeah, there's been a patch 14.3 has been released. If you haven't been playing a lot of Hearthstone lately, most of the people in the community have been, hooray, this is great. We're getting what we wanted. The Rogue has been slowed down effectively. So we'll just kind of go through some of the cards. Evil Miscreant, which is a 3-cost, used to be a 3-cost 1/5 minion. They basically just dropped its health down to 4 so it can be more easily removed, because what was happening is rogues were bouncing that card with impunity between Waggle Pick and Shadow Step and stuff.
And it's
And
amazing
Evil
how much 4 health is a lot easier to remove than 5.
Yes,
Just that
because,
one more.
because so much removal does 4 damage,
Yeah.
So they just tamped it down a little bit. I think the card's actually still good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's bad at all.
I think they'll still play it.
And before we get into all the nerfs, BT Dubs, they will give you full dust refund. The typical procedural thing is whenever they release nerfs, dust everything and hang on to your dust for a week or two, see if you like it or not. And if those cards never come back, then you have dust to do other stuff. But generally, if you decide to change your mind, you still get full dust value. So dust them initially is usually the recommendation. The second thing they did was they raised the cost of Raiding Party, which another rogue card. They raised it to 4, up from 3. I think they were tired of
Prep Raiding Party on turn.
On turn 4, what was happening is you could prep on turn 4, put Raiding Party, draw your Waggle Pick and a bunch of your pirates. Usually like your South Sea, no. What was that? Dread Corsair. You Dread Corsair taunt. So you basically put a 4-cost 4/2 weapon plus 6/6 worth of taunt bodies on the field, and by then you'd already been doing stuff. So, it's not like and in tandem with that, they finally, people have been talking about this for years. They took preparation, and preparation only now reduces your spells to cost 2 less instead of 3 like it used to be. So you can't prep out Raiding Party. You can put it out for 2, but you can't do it for free. So it slows Rogue down. Big time. Big time slows it down. So as a Rogue player, I'm kind of like, this is definitely needed. I wouldn't mind it if it lasted longer, but I'm also not in the tournament scene, and I'm not also grinding ladder all the time, and I like to play more variety than just the same old, same old. So I'm not sad about it, but
like touch on what their reasons are for doing it. All changes we make to the basic and classic sets are aimed at ensuring Hearthstone's long-term health. Preparation is currently seen as such a powerful card it appears in nearly all rogue deck archetypes. That said, the change we've landed on is a small one. While we do want the card's power to decrease, we also think it's important for preparation to remain a reasonable option since it fits the rogue class fantasy so well. So not just getting rid of it entirely or nerfing it into the ground. So they like it if you use it with Sap or Eviscerate. Not just dirty, like full turn reversal things.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, the idea is Rogue should be able to come from behind, right, and kind of catch up. That's kind of how the class has played over the years. But when you can initiate a gigantic amount of damage and stats on the board for nothing, for 4 mana ostensibly, then that's just a little bit too good of it. It's not even a swing. It's like, okay, answer all of this now. You know what I mean? So I think it makes sense. But I've always been of the mind that, dude, change it up, change it back, see what happens, see what works. If we get another set where this combo is not even a possibility, then shoot, move it back to 3. I'm cool with that. Buff, nerf buff, I'm cool with that. But I know this card has been called for years. People in our community that we know well, different podcasts have been calling for this card to be nerfed. So,
Archivist Elysiana now costs 9 mana, up from 8. So their goal here is to make her for the purpose that she's supposed to be, but More difficult to play her multiple times in the same game because you can now not play her alongside things like Baleful Banker and Youthful Brewmaster, popping her back into your hand or your deck. And so Shaman can still get her through Shudderwalk, but you have a chance to get rid of her before they start doing more targeting at her, putting her back in their hand or deck.
Yeah, I still think Archivist Elysiana is still a very good card at 9 because she still does a very powerful thing. Got good stats on the body. But I think that you're right. It keeps. I think it was sort of a tournament nerf because I hadn't played too many ladder games where they were bouncing Archivist on Elysiana.
I'd never
You know what I
seen
mean?
her. Like, never.
In play?
Yeah. So I knew there was a whole bunch of outrage from the community saying this is horrible, you need to nerf it. But I honestly never understood the level of hate that she got and the worry about her and all of this fear. So maybe it is a lot tournament scene, and that's why I'm not understanding how it's hitting people.
I think
because
the
tournaments play
general.
out way differently than ladder does.
Yes. I think that if you're bringing a control warrior, and the name of the game for control warrior so often is value. What more can you get? What more value can you get by basically being able to bounce, 20, possibly 30 extra cards into your deck? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're
2 decks
already a
worth.
control deck. Like,
Mhm.
it's already control. It's so it's more control. Like, you've got Dr. Boom there for infinite value too, and if it's in the mirror, then you've both got Elysiana. Like, I don't know. I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's not a deck you're going to play, but I mean, it still is cool. I think the cool thing I like the most about this card, in terms of like, even though those matchups are kind of boring, is that you don't know what the cards they discovered off there. So it's like getting a
Yes.
miniature arena draw. So it's like, oh, that's what you got off there. Oh, that's what you got, and that makes the end game a little bit more interesting. And then like when to
Right.
cast her, when to drop her. Like whenever I'm playing Bomb Warrior, I'm holding my not Elysiana. What's the other one? The 7 cost that puts a copy of your hand. I'm blanking out. What's the cost? She's a 7 cost card, 3/3 body that copies your opponent's hand and puts it into your hand. What is it? It's What is it? Anyways,
no
I'm
idea.
blanking out. It must be
Sorry.
late enough for me. Long week. No, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. It'll hit me. It's like one of my favorite cards from the set, from the Witchword set.
Like a crow.
No, it's not Glenda Stormcrow. It's something else. Anyhow, but I think the nerf is
Your brain will
perfectly
get there
appropriate.
if you stop thinking about it. So we'll
Totally will.
see that's why I think it might upset people though, is because it's like I got to this point and I had a chance to win, and now there's a bunch of randomness that I can't account for. It's kind of like Yogg, where all of a sudden it might not be based on strategy. It's now, did you get better cards than I did out of your Elysiana, which might be frustrating to lose too. Because I don't really think that making the game that much longer is that big of a deal, especially if it's exciting to watch. Like if I was watching, I'd be like, what cards did he get from Elysiana? But I can see how for the pros, that kind of randomness being added to the game is not what they like.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, for people competing, I think the big outcry that I heard forever, I mean, it was just the drum that everybody was beating, is that tournaments, which shouldn't last that long, were lasting 15 plus hours because, people taking full turn length, really thinking about their plays, and then making a normal 30 deck card deck into a 40 card deck or a 50 card deck, and that's just too much. That's Hearthstone, kind of the charm of the game is short, concise games. The game's over with roughly 7 minutes to 10 minutes tops. But I played 2 games today that took me over half an hour.
That's the thing. Like, I think it was Schwal I was talking to in Discord about, like, now that Rogue is gone, all I have to worry about is Warrior. And I was like, well, actually, I have a pretty good win rate against Warrior as Druid because I played against so many of them that I kind of got to the point where I sort of knew my outs. And they get lucky or I get lucky. That's the thing. But I have a chance. But I don't want to because it's going to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I've
but
noticed that
I
the
don't see
game, like,
Elysiana, so it's 30 minutes without Elysiana.
Hunter can make that go real bad because Warrior still is a much Hunter kind of trounces Warrior. So I'm trying to figure out what what really kind of can counter Hunter right now. I'm not 100% sure what that is because I don't think the meta's quite shaken out yet. That's why I'm just kind of like, well, you know what? I don't know what to do. I need to probably
Play
improve our warrior
Murloc
chops.
Shaman.
Murloc Shaman's really fast. If they get a good start, they're stupidly broken.
But they
But
better not nerf that one that gives you a Murloc whenever you play a Murloc, because that's beautiful.
the angler, no, the angler.
I love it so much. You remember when we had that one that gave you a random Murloc whenever you used your hero power?
Oh, Murloc Knight.
Yeah,
That
it's
card's
even
fun.
better than Murloc Knight.
It is even better than Murloc Knight. It's cheaper and more value. So
I love it.
yeah, Murloc Knight was a
So-
sweet card, and he was really cute too.
For the first time in the history of Hearthstone since release, we are getting buffs to some cards. And you know what? I'm going to be honest and admit to you. I heard people saying, "Can we get some buffs?" And I was thinking in my head, that will never happen.
They've never done it before.
Like, how do you even buff cards in Hearthstone? And how do you even choose which ones to buff and why to buff them? And like, so in my head, I was like, nah, that'll never happen. And then they came down the pipe and I was like, well, okay, I have to eat my hat. It happened.
Well, you know, and it's interesting because somebody made a comment that finally, I don't remember who said it on Twitter, but they said, and I've heard the sentiment before, so it may not be worth quoting, but they said, finally, they're taking advantage of the fact that it's digital. Their card game is digital, you know, because
Right.
that was the thing about Magic that was so hard. It was hard for them to nerf and buff cards because it's paper, you know, so the turnaround on that is pretty substantial. But here they're like, you know, they looked at an array of cards and they even put some kind of like flavor into it. Like Dr. Boom's back in the laboratory and he's tinkering around and trying to improve his stuff. It's like, awesome. That's great. Tell me more. So they buffed a bunch of cards. Let's see, they did 2 from every class. Right? Yep, they did 2 for every class. So 18 cards total.
Just
So-
to make it fair.
Let's tick them off. And by the way, these changes will take effect on June 3rd. So probably sometime in the next week or so. Actually, a little over a week from today, actually, that we're recording. Probably about a week or so from those of you who are listening. So, Eve, why don't you read the first one?
So Gloop Sprayer,
Mhm.
battle cry, summon a copy of each adjacent minion, is going down to 7 mana. It
Mhm.
used to be 8, and they're removing the cost
Mhm.
down to 7. Mulch Muncher, which is Rush, costs 1 less for each friendly treant that died this game, is going down to 9 from 10. So this is fascinating to me. Do you think that they just had like a whole bunch of stats and we're like, the reason that these aren't seeing play is because the stats are wrong? They're just too expensive compared to other cards that we have that are seeing play and like further attack and their health. And if we did this, they might actually see play.
You know, I think that was probably part of the thought. That would be my guess. But I think that, especially as we get into this, some cards like certain mana points can make a card not just slightly better, but drastically better. For example, a card going from costing 2 to costing 1 is huge.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot bigger than a card going from 10 down to 9. You know what I mean? It's possible that, like, I mean, you don't want to play Mulch Muncher. That's not a card. I played with it a little bit at the beginning of the set because I thought Treant Druid was going to be good. And so I was excited to put out an 8/8. But even then, it was clunky. So maybe 1 mana might make a difference. But I don't know that makes it. It makes it, at least I think people probably be willing to experiment with it. It's like, okay, 1 mana less? All right, let's see if this works. This checks out and works. And I don't know yet because we won't know until at
Well,
least
here's
the
the
3rd.
thing. Like, I could put this in my Treant deck because probably enough Treants will have died by the time. But
Mhm.
what does it do and why do I care about it? It's an 8/8 with Rush.
Mm-hmm. There's better
It's
things
not
to put
doing
in there.
something
Yeah.
that makes me care enough to play it in my deck. Because even if I get it for 0, what is it even doing? It can't hit face.
Yeah. Yeah. The deck
So
you're
it's
running wants to hit
removing
face.
maybe a taunt for me. Like, thanks, not good enough. That's my problem with it at the moment. Gloop Sprayer, on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
summons a copy of each adjacent minion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to go down and then summon 2 more cards with it.
Mm-hmm. Makes your board
You
go
know
wide
what
really
Dr.
fast.
Boom was?
Right. It was a 7-cost card that did that, although he had a 7/7 body on it. So
Right, but what if my adjacent cards aren't 1/1 boom bots? What if they're massive treants?
mhm.
And I'm summoning copies of those.
I think the big criticism of this card is that it's somewhat of a win more card.
'Tis true. I mean, Druid does want ways to continually repopulate the board to the point where, like, okay, I'm now happy to put Spirit of the Forest on things. I don't just have 2 minions down, I have 4.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Spirit of the Forest?
Spirit of
The one that
Forest.
gives Death Rattle, summon.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So just the fact that it's 7 is making me consider it. It's still super expensive.
Yeah, I think it's probably just a means to get people experimenting. Because like streamers and pros will pick up these cards and say, "Oh, well, you know what? It's less. Let's see what we can do with it." So we'll see.
So Hunter, Necro Mechanic, because Hunter didn't have enough Death Rattle stuff going on, is right now a 5-mana 3/6. Your Death Rattles trigger twice and will become a 4-mana 3/6. Your Death Rattles trigger twice. I'm a little scared by that. Should I be? Would you play this in your Hunter
I
deck?
would. If I'm running if the meta is slower and I'm running Death Rattle Hunter, this card's good. And it was
It's as slow as it gets,
I-
Grant.
I-
It's got Warrior in it.
well, I played some Death Rattle Hunters early in the expansion release, and this card was in a lot of lists at 5 mana, and it wasn't bad. I think it was a little clunky, but at 4 mana, remember it's got the body of a water elemental.
Yeah, that's really good.
And if you leave that card on board, you win. I mean, if you can take advantage of that card one turn, especially if you have like the what's the card, the fireworks, the 2/1 that triggers your death rattles on the minion that triggers your death rattles on the board. That thing is it's very reminiscent of Cube, just a lot more easy to deal with than Cubes used to be.
Flark's Boomzooka is 8 mana at the moment, and it's going to go down to 7 mana. So Flark's Boomzooka right now, summon 3 minions from your deck. They attack enemy minions, then die. So if every single one of them is a Death Rattle minion that, I don't know, leaves something on the board or does something cool, then you don't care if they die because they leave a whole bunch of stuff behind or clear stuff. So yeah, that's going down to 7 mana.
I think if you run a completely Death Rattle deck, it's okay. I know Duin experimented with this one a lot. I don't know if it makes it good yet, but I think it again makes it worth trying. So we can see.
Now, I wanted to use unexpected results because summoning 2 random 2-cost minions just sounded fun anyway. And now it's going to be 3 mana instead of 4.
This card,
So
I
I
think, has
think
some real
that's-
potential. I think there was some value mage minions that mage decks, I mean, that were looking like they might have potential to be decent. This card at 3, summoning 2 random 2-cost minions at 3, because there's a lot of decent 2-cost minions. You know what I mean? It's a fair amount of stats for 3, and multiple bodies has proven by every card that summons multiple bodies has proven to be pretty good.
Well, here's something that goes right along with it. Luna's Pocket Galaxy
Hype.
right now is 7 mana, and it's going way down
To
to
5.
5.
Yes.
For those of you that don't remember, Luna's Pocket Galaxy changes the cost of minions in your deck to 1.
Yep.
Which historically hasn't mattered much to Mage, but this may now be a cheap enough spell to make it worth trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Aviana permanently?
I think this card makes some. I think this card is going to be better in Wild. I was just thinking about its possibilities. Because you don't want to take a turn off, right? Taking a turn off, because at 5, the 5 price point, you can still kind of do something on your turn, especially late game when you're more likely to have it. Early game, slower against a slower matchup, it's fine. Against a fast matchup, you definitely want to keep it early, so it's a bummer. But still, 5 mana, and then all of a sudden, all these combo things that you'd like to do for 0. I mean, all the stuff you can do for nothing.
Antonitis will come back.
Antonitis for days. I mean, you can have a mitt full of fireballs and GG. So I'm excited to kind of see what this means now. I said 0, I meant 1. So, but that's still good.
Christology, which is a paladin spell. Draw 2 1-attack minions from your deck. It was 2 mana, and it's going down to 1 mana.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like
That's ridiculous.
it's not putting them on the board, but drawing 2 cards for 1 mana.
That's insane. This card was seeing play before this nerf, or this buff, I mean, and I think it's going to be really good. I think Paladin...
It's tutoring things out for 1.
Paladin is going to be the dark horse. I'm going to call it. I saw somebody play let's read the next one before we get too far into this. Glowstone Technician.
Glowstone Technician. Go ahead.
Okay, so Glowstone Technician is a 6-cost 3/4. Reads normally, battle cry, give all your minions in your hand 2/2. Seen almost no play. But they're going to drop it down a mana to 5. Now, this card makes a lot of the buff Paladin stuff that they had said many times over the years that they want to kind of make Paladin kind of its jam to do all that kind of shenanigans. This makes it a lot more feasible. And I played against a Paladin that played the value buff game with this card and some other things. And I lost hard to it with a Control Warrior because they kept putting these big, giant threats on the board that I couldn't do anything about. And then this particular guy I was playing played that dragon card that buffs all your dragons in your hand 2/2 or 3/3. So he played the bronze dragon card that when it dies, it puts 2 4/4 dragons in your hand. And then he played that, and he had these 7/7s for days. And it was just like, geez. And I just couldn't. That's how you beat Warrior. You go tall over and over again, and eventually they can't do anything about it. And I think that this card, when it gets dropped down to 5 mana, it's going to be super good.
This feels like me almost to remember when they told us they were going to continue adding dragons until they hit like a tipping point, and then suddenly Priest made a dragon deck. This feels like that. They're like, we want to encourage this archetype, and instead of just creating a bunch of cards until there's enough different cards, it's like, can we adjust the mana cost of this to make it playable? And I think 5 for a 3/4 +2/2 is a lot, especially if you get it on more than 1 minion in your hand.
Well, I, for one, would like to welcome our Dragon Overlords with the Paladin tag in it. So I'd like to see that. That's
been a fan of dragons for a long time. So.
I was wondering if that would be something you'd be interested in, because I know you used to be like the Dragon Priestess.
Oh, yeah.
And then you kind of moved over to the aggro side, we just didn't talk about it for a long time. But would that bring you back? Because it's Paladin?
Well, it depends on what kind of a deck, because the reason I loved Priest Dragon so much is because it's very tempo. It's very, you have a dragon for turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and more dragons and more dragons. If it was just like play your early game and then we got a bunch of big heavy dragons that do stuff, that wasn't super fun. But if you have them and they do things all through the game, so you need a certain amount in your deck to make sure that all the dragon things happen, that was more fun for me.
That makes sense. And I think there's enough dragons to curve out to where I think Dragon Paladin could be a real, actually good deck, and I'm excited to see that. All right. Priest, go ahead, Eve.
Extra arms. Like, we laughed so much about this. Give a minion +2/2. Add more arms to your hand that gives +2/2. Really should have just had Twin Spell on it, but whatever.
Sure.
That's going down to 2 mana. Right now it's 3. So that's like a very decent level. How much is Blessing of Kings?
Blessing of Kings is 4 costs.
Yeah.
So it's Blessing of Kings. It's like Blessing of Kings partitioned into 2 cards, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's good. That's decent. And then cloning device. Discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. Is going down to 1 mana.
That's cool. That's cool.
Like that makes it playable because you're not actually doing anything, right? Like you just get to look and pick a card, and that doesn't really do anything. Now you have to play it. So bringing it down to 1 mana makes that like, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just shy of 0 mana. So that's absolutely within reason to be able to possibly steal a very good card from your opponent and have it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
And it's a minion. So
Mhm.
for sure, you're not going to have like any spells you can't use or something like that. The more arms token will also cost 2.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's like a Blessing King split in 2. For Rogue, they're going to Pogo Hopper. They're going to bring it down from costing 2 to costing 1. So it's a 1 cost 1/1. And in Rogue Land, that could be stupid. And Pogo Hopper has always been like a fringe deck. Like it's almost been good, because people have been trying to abuse it to get like, 32/32s on the board because they've cycled so many Pogo Hoppers. So we'll see.
It's so cheap. It's 1 mana for 1/1 that also has a mech tag,
Mhm.
which usually when things have a tag like Beast or whatever,
Right.
that's worth
Sure.
something mana-wise. And then also with Rogue, just being able to combo their stuff and do everything they want with a 1 mana card.
What?
I feel like they're really pushing Pogo Hopper. Is that just
It
me?
could be. So the new meta, Pogo Hopper versus Dragon Paladin. That.
You know what? That sounds better than what we have right now, so I'm on it.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Violet
actually.
Haze. Add 2 random death rattle cards to your hand. It used to be 3. It's going to be 2. Is that worth it? They're random death rattle cards. I don't think it'll see play.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, I think for the people who like to have the random stuff just kind of show up in their hand, the people that like to cast the what's the bloom? What's the from Goro? Well, that one seems like it could be more of a wild gear. In fact, I keep thinking of all these cards through Wildlands, and I don't know why. Because I think they're meant to make
It's
the
good. We have
standard game
listeners
better.
who play Wild, so
Yeah,
it's also good.
there's nothing wrong with wild. Wild players are real players. They're just as valuable. Okay.
Here's the thing, though. Like, with those decks in Rogue that want to have cards in their hand from other classes and cards that didn't start in their deck and stuff, this just says random death rattle cards. So they could be both neutral and not trigger anything. They could be rogue and not trigger anything. It doesn't say from another class or anything. So that's even less of an incentive for them to put this in there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the shaman legendary spell, the Stormbringer, transform your legendary minions, or transform your minions into random legendary minions, which compromises a certain percentage of Trollin videos. It's going down to 6 mana. I like that card. That card's always thought was cool, and people were running it in like token shaman type decks to get a bunch of weenie minions out, and then boom, drop that, and bada boom, bada bing. You have a board full of scary stuff.
Well, here's the thing. Do you remember how much Thrall the Death Knight was?
He was 6, right?
Was he 5?
No, he was 5.
6?
You're right. He was 5. He was 5.
Okay. Because I was going to say, when you put him on, the point was to have a board to drop him and then like double evolve, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of feels like that. Like it's a spell that's like, if you have a board, this is your like version of evolve that is going to guarantee you craziness. Except for there's a lot of really bad legendaries.
Yeah. Yeah, like you get a board full of Lower Walker Chos and Nat Pegels, and that wouldn't be too fun. So
if they put it down to 5, I'd play it.
Yeah, I think 5 would be the point of making it possibly busted. Who knows? The other shaman card they buffed was Thunderhead. They just merely raised its health. So Thunderhead's the cool card that's a 4 cost. It was a 3/5. It will be a 3/6. After you play a card with Overload, summon 2 1/1 Sparks with Rush. I was playing weeks ago. We put out like a budget shaman deck, and it ran this card in it. I wonder if this will help that deck be any better. I'm not sure if it will or not, because 1 point of health doesn't seem to make.
What's the health of elemental? Water
3/6.
elemental? Yeah.
It could.
Those things are hard to remove. And we were talking earlier about how much 1 more health can really make a difference when you're trying to remove it. And I think if the stats are right on this, then this is great. Because I love playing Thunderhead. And I know a lot of Shaman lovers who love playing Thunderhead too, because it's a fun card.
Yeah.
But when you can't get like even 2 1/1 Sparks out, because Overload is hard to kind of manage with Shaman to put things out and to overload things and to still be able to do stuff. So just being able to live a bit longer and be that much harder to remove, I like it.
Especially because that card
Good job, Blizzard.
That card just can be value city if you play your hand right.
Yeah, it's fun, but I don't know anybody who's like super angry about it, you know?
No, definitely not. Nobody's like, Thunderhead's just, makes Hearthstone toxic and awful, and Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
I don't know why they ask for money for this game, and blah blah blah. That's not the card they cite for that.
Okay, here's a card I didn't even know existed. Spirit Bomb. Like, without looking, do you know what it does?
Yeah, Spirit Bomb is a card that does 4 health, 4 damage to a minion, but it also does 4 damage to you. So, in true Warlock fashion, you want to do something cool, you're going to pay for it. So, not 2 cost anymore, it's down to 1. So, 1 cost removal of a 4 attack minion. I wonder what they're trying to target.
Does it sound familiar to you? A 1 cost spell that does 4 damage?
Sounds like Soulfire to me, except that you don't dump your hand. I think I'd rather take the damage.
And also, you can only do it to a minion.
Yeah. I wonder why they call it Spirit Bomb.
Yeah, I'd rather take the damage any day.
It's so Dragon Ball Z of them. But the Spirit Bomb was cool, and this is just kind of clunky.
Spirit Bomb sounds like a priest spell, not a warlock spell.
I think the name is a misplay.
I wonder if it started out as a priest spell. Because they do have like the dark side of the priest, right? That they've done with before, like making your healing do damage and things like that. They've experimented with going that way with the priest. I kind of wonder whether this started out as a priest spell because the name is a little
It could have been
odd.
It really could have been.
Spirit is not a warlock thing. They're like fell.
Next card is Dr. Morrigan. Dr. Morrigan went down, which is a card that reads, Death Rattle, swap this with a minion from your deck. Now, at 8 cost, an 8 cost 5/5 is what it used to be. That's just unplayable. I've never seen this card played, but at 6 cost 5/5 that has that type of effect could be
Like, I don't want to
good.
seem dumb, but tell me like the best case scenario with this. What's so good about this?
You run like a big warlock kind of style of deck, and so you have a lot of big fatty minions like Lich King or Malagos or something like that, right? And then you play Morrigan, she dies, and then she puts that card out for whatever. So your opponent doesn't know how to deal with it, so that it pulls your card out, and then you can do combo stuff for cheap.
Yeah, she was 8 though, so that wasn't cheap.
No, 8 made it no point. It's like, why would I want to play that card when I can just play the card? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So being able to potentially cheat something out for 6 mana, plus have a body that kind of can do some removal.
Or just make it a tutor. The other thing is warlock cards tend to have a downside. Like a lot of the really good ones are like make you discard cards and deal damage to your face and stuff. So if you can just swap it out without taking all of those bad things, that makes sense to me. So maybe it'll get played now that it's 6 mana.
I mean, it really could. I mean, that 2 mana drop is no small drop in mana considering what it has the potential to do. I know
it was unplayable.
I know Andrew's going to be excited about that. Andrew from Happy Hearthstone, he's going to be trying to make that work. I'll bet he is. I mean, he's mentioned it before.
And what did they give Warrior? Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 mech with taunt. So Security Rover is going from 6 mana. No, wait. Its stats are changing. Mm-hmm. It was a 2/5 and it's going to a 2/6. Is this ever being played in decks right now at all?
Nope, not in decks. It a lot of times gets picked. Like when you get your 1 cost warrior spell.
Right, it's like discover a mech.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
So it can be a real pain in the butt for aggro. Late game, but usually by the time you're that late in the game, you don't need that card. You're probably already winning if you're that late. So I don't know. I'm lukewarm about it.
So they're not changing mana for Warrior, but Beryllium Nullifier used to be a 3/8 and it's now going to be a 4/8. So it's attack. Huh. Because
I saw a considerable amount of assault on this one on the internet that I did not expect to see. Like, oh, great. An even more powerful attacking minion that can't be targeted. That Dr. Boom can get you, or Dr. Boom Hero Portrait card can get you. And
that's the thing, because of the Discovering Mechs, you don't put this in your deck, but you can still get it, and then you put it together with something, because it's got Magnetic. Mm-hmm. You put it together with something that's got Lifesteal and Charge and Taunt, and all of a sudden, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, some people were like, Blizzard, you're idiots. And that was really the only negative thing I saw about the buffs. Everybody else was like, hooray, we finally reached this point where we'll buff cards without just to do it, just to make the gaming experience fresh and new. And we were a little remiss. We didn't.
Health.
It's a lot of health for a non-targetable minion.
And it's got magnetic, which means you're probably adding to that health. And it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers.
Yeah. It could be good.
I mean, you can still brawl and you can still, what is it, the warlock, like Oblivion or something and stuff like that. But just like being forced to trade with this over and over and over and over until it dies. Does that look like a Captain America shield? It's got stars on it. Blasphemy.
Maybe.
Sorry, you were saying something. We neglected to cover.
We don't have it in the show notes, but I'll make sure that I say it. Is the Snip Snap card that you'll be getting when the nerfs drop. Everybody's getting a free legendary.
Oh, it's at the very top, right under Hearthstone News. Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
Snip Snap.
It's Snip Snap. It's a crab mech, but it doesn't say crab. It doesn't say beast or anything like that. It is a 3-cost, 2/3 mech legendary minion. And a shout out to Blister Guy for making me laugh really loud in a parking lot because I was listening to him saying he's like, it says Snip Snap, but really it's probably like snip one snip. Like he said it. I don't remember how he said it, but he said it in such a funny way that I just like guffawed in the middle of the parking lot, getting out of my car while I was listening to this show, and people kind of look at me like, and it's like, oh yeah, they probably just think I'm nuts because they don't know what I'm hearing. But Snip Snap is a magnetic mech. It has Echo and it has Death Rattle. Summon 2/1/1 microbots.
Do microbots have Rush?
No.
Okay.
Unless you're playing Warrior. But the big hullabaloo over the last couple days was they released this, and somebody figured out that with Reckless Experimenter,
Death Rattle minions you play cost 3 less but die at the end of the turn.
Yes, and they were worried, that there would be an infinite amount of damage in a turn where they would use like that robotic squirrel card, and I'm not echoing this, relating this properly, but basically it would have done an OTK combo, and everybody's like, I don't want to lose on turn 5 to an OTK infinite damage combo. So, because what they were going to do is you'd play the squirrel. It's a stealth minion, and it would sit there on the board, and then you would play Reckless Experimenter. And then you have an Echo card that is 0 cost, and you can just buff the squirrel and buff the squirrel and buff it and buff it and buff it until you have 1,000,000 damage, and then you kill your opponent on turn 5.
So Blizzard immediately went, oops, we made a mistake. We became aware of an interaction between Snip Snap and Reckless Experimenter that allows for an early game infinite damage combo in Priest. As a result of this, we've opted to make a change to Reckless Experimenter to go along with the 14.4 patch. So this combo is no longer possible.
Yep.
We're also aware of some interactions that Snip Snap creates in Wild when played alongside multiple copies of Mech Warper. We'll be keeping a close eye on how that plays out over the following weeks. So we'll be keeping a close eye on it.
Yeah,
dear.
I wondered about this. Like, there's a couple unintended interactions that they haven't thought about, but I actually am a little surprised that they preemptively nerfed cards rather than at least letting it play out. My guess is that they probably played it and said, well, hang on, let's try that. Let's see what that's like in playtesting. And we're like, oh, no. No. We can't let this exist because Hearthstone will turn into probably
OTK is
Undertaker
for some
levels
people,
of hate.
But not too early in the game.
No. OTK on turn 5, really an OTK before turn 10 is still untenable. You can't have the game being that way.
Yeah. We no longer have Emperor Thaurissan in standard to tick, all those ultimate combos. So we do generally keep it to late game, but this is a little much. So you're getting a golden copy for free as long as you log in between June something and something. Log in during June.
Just
And then
log
later
in.
you'll have to crab it. You'll have to craft it if
You'll
you
have
don't.
to crab it.
You'll have to crab it.
I love it. So
Snip snap. That just makes me think of so many things, including Jabberwocky. The claws that bite. Or no, the jaws that bite, the claws that
it's
snatch.
the crab
Snip, snap.
claws that tilt is what they are. So
Why do you think they made it? Why do you think they just added it?
you know,
You
that
feel
is
like
one of
they
those-
always wanted to put it in, but they were tinkering around with how it worked. And they were like, okay, I think we finally got it to the point where it's not stupid. And then they put it in, and immediately everyone was like, haha, found the OTK combo. And you're like, oh no, we've made a terrible mistake.
I don't know why they just did it. I mean, they've given out free cards like this before, but the timing of this particular card in tandem with the buffs is very intriguing in terms of like a model for how they're going to release content. They've never released a batch of just seemingly randomly buffed cards, but they're also choosing to release it with a brand new legendary that everybody gets just merely for logging in. Now, if people are going to get on their bandwagons of, Blizzard is just trying to, bilk as much money out of us as they can and microtransaction us into the poorhouse or whatever they want to say, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is an example of goodwill of, I think, of the company to say, hey, look, player base, here's something new to play with. You don't have to buy cards. You don't have to do anything. Cards that weren't any good are now good, and let's shake up the meta without having to release a new set. And they're doing it, kind of in the halfway-ish mark between the set. You know what I mean? Because it came out in April.
Zale too.
What?
Zale,
the legendary card that basically is like a whiz bang. So that's
you
pretty
start
cool.
the game with one of Zale's evil decks. I would be super excited if they made. Well, no, I guess they don't need to until Whizbang rotates out, but continued making legendary cards that came with a couple of decks. I think that would be really smart on their part, and then kind of choosing how to make them available.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly with adventures would be a really cool way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they've just been giving us a bunch of cards, which I think is just like every couple of months doing something interesting and exciting and be like, here's an adventure and here's some cards to go with it and here's a legendary, and it seems really good.
Yeah, I like it. I've noticed that the community has vastly been more positive. Even people that I would generally view, without naming names, as kind of negative people, negative voices in the community, important but still negative. They're even like, this is great, this is awesome, and when those people are even positive, I can't help but think that the community base at large is just happy as a clam, so to speak. I don't know how clams can be happy, but that's just the phrase I chose to use. So
I think it's a good way to just get more life into the meta, keep it changing, keep it fresh, is to because legendary cards generally have a big impact, even if it's just like a bunch of people trying to make it work on a deck for a while. So I like that. It's not just like one of those times where they're like log in and you get 2 golden versions of a card nobody plays in no decks.
Right.
Because it's like themed. This is kind of more, you might actually use this and legitimately try and make a deck with it, and it's fun. So yeah,
Well,
it's cool.
So I'm hoping that one of my dreams for Hearthstone is that we kind of get back to that level of you hear mechs all the time in the meta, and I think we're kind of there actually with warrior and hunter being so prevalent. But I see some room for more mech type styles of play, and maybe some of the other decks. So we'll see. Paladin maybe for sure more, but we're thinking dragons there, and we'll see. I think maybe even rogue, maybe pogo hopper deck coming out and being good again. So
I don't like magnetic as much as I did to begin with. It does kind of
it's way
almost
more
make it
powerful.
yeah, back in the day when Paladin was like, you never let them keep a single minion on the board. That's how it feels like with mechs now. It's like if you leave that minion, it's going to get stuck with something with a huge amount of health and it's going to have charge.
Yeah, magnetic makes it to where rather than just having, the 3 or 4 buff cards a paladin would put in their deck because, they didn't want to put too many buff cards because then they would have a mitt full of spells and couldn't play the game. With magnetic is not only is it a buff, but it's also can also be a body, and there's also more options for magnetic than there were buff cards. So they're good on their own, and the magnetic just makes them OP. It makes them just burst damage, you know.
Yeah, you
So
can go face because if the minion's been there for a turn, it
mhm,
now just has charge with whatever buff you put on it. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. And I'm an aggro player.
mhm, yeah,
It just feels a bit like your only options are putting silence in, which kind of feels bad. I don't like it. Like I don't think really Blizzard likes it when you feel like your only option is to put spell slingers in your deck
yep,
or owls.
yeah, and I think I had actually had that thought because I just lost really hard to some magnetic interactions this week. And I thought, do I need to start taking in silence? Is that where we're at now in the new meta? Is it a silence meta again? So I haven't had that thought recent the last few days, but it's definitely a thing. So um,
Keep an eye on it.
yeah. So
Anything else?
we had
Arena?
some arena. I mean, we'll touch on it recently, briefly. Arena is going to rotate out. So with the June 3rd buffs, they're also going to rotate out the current sets. You'll remember that the last set, they decided to bring back some wild card sets to put in arena. I played a crap ton of arena at the beginning of this month. I played more arena at the beginning of this month.
Really?
Yes. Than I played like all the arena combined in my life previous to that point. I just decided I'm gonna play a lot of arena. Um,
How was it?
it was fun. I liked playing it a lot, and I didn't do terribly great at it. I averaged 4 to 6 wins per match every time I did it. So I was kind of
Grant,
breaking
that's
even.
actually really good.
So I did all right. I did all right.
Yeah.
I don't not consider myself a great arena player, but I can tell you that I learned a lot of how to play arena better through the process. Um, but I
Don't feel
did
bad
I
about
gave it
that.
the old college try, and so I came really close to winning to get it going infinite a couple times, and was disappointed by some stupid busted thing that they happen to have in their hand that I didn't anticipate. That was like, really, you have that cohesive of a deck? Come on, like
This is arena.
this is arena.
Play
You
like
shouldn't
an
have that.
arena.
You shouldn't have that kind of a combo or that kind of interactions, but they did, and that's all fun. Um, but anyways, they're going to rotate. It's going to rotate again, which is cool because you got to do that for those arena guys and gals out there that really, really like to, just kind of hang out in that format. You will have classic, basic, goblins versus gnomes, the grand tournament, which is the new one night in Karazhan, the Boomsday Project, and Rise of Shadows. Those are the sets they're going to be using. So I love the limited format using stuff that spans the entire history of Hearthstone. I do like how that changes the games and makes games interesting in ways that you're just not ready for. So I will probably try to play some more arena because I enjoy it immensely. I'd like to get another 12 key. It's arena is where I think you're just raw Hearthstone skills in terms of deck building, assembly, knowledge of the game, knowledge of stuff that nobody thinks about in like a constructed sort of format. I think there's a lot of really, really strong, skilled players that are doing arena awesomely on a
It's a
regular
good challenge
basis.
for yourself.
Hmm.
Like if you're feeling like the meta is kind of samey and you don't feel a challenge every deck that you go up against,
Hmm.
this is definitely a way to stretch your brain and kind of be like, okay, without knowing what the rest of the cards are going to be in my deck, what are just value cards to put in?
Hmm.
And then once you play, what are the possibilities of what my opponent has from GVG, the Grand Tournament, One Night in Karazhan, like all of these cards that you forgot existed.
Well, I had a really sweet deck that I had built. The first card that was offered to me in one of the buckets was N'Zoth. And I was playing a rogue. It was a rogue deck, and the first thing that goes, boom, N'Zoth. And I'm like, yoink. And then I built an entirely Death Rattle deck based around N'Zoth. And I was like, oh, this is
nice.
going to be so 12 wins. I ended up only going 6, just because the stuff I was going against was even better. But man, it was just so fun to like be able to drop N'Zoth and have a board full of awesome taunts and Death Rattle stuff. Because Sludge Belchers
So you
in
feel
the
like
meta.
the synergy is
Mhm.
much better in arena. Like it's working.
It can. And one of the things I've been noticing from like some of the better arena players that I follow is a lot of times they'll advertise their stream. Hey, join us tonight as we go play, and they'll give a tag assigned to their arena deck. We're gonna play, spell damage mage in arena, and it's like interesting. arena players. I don't
Did
know if
you
it's
already make that deck?
they're not just thinking of value all the time. They're actually thinking of like interactions with the deck to where the point where they can kind of give it sort of a tag. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, I will tell you something. There are definitely some arena players that if they don't get a decent deck, they just retire it and they go again.
Yeah.
Especially if they want to be on stream and they want to specifically go for something
Mhm.
and like try and do something specific for the people watching them.
Mhm.
They have no problem going, yeah, this is crap, and try another one.
Well, arena's so weird. Like the one experience I had over and over again is I would draft a deck that I didn't think was good at all, and I'd win more games than I thought I would. And then I would draft a deck that I thought was really strong, and I wouldn't win as many games as I thought I would. So it's like, what's going on
I wonder if
here?
it's a mindset thing where like you're going in feeling the underdog and like having to claw your way up and you're working really hard and thinking through everything, or you're going in feeling like so confident and like maybe a bit
Well, I
lazy with your plays because you got such an awesome deck.
some of the games, so many times I felt like it was feast or famine. Like I just rolled the opponent with just maybe because they had a bad draw, and I just was able to have board and keep board, and that was GG, done by turn 8. And other times, like it felt like I just never had a chance because their deck was so busted. Like they had a thing. It's like you have that card, geez, and you have that card, and you have that kind of synergy in that deck. Wow. Holy cow. I mean, it felt like it was one or the other. Like I could win with nothing, or I would lose to something OP, to, the max. So I don't know. So, but
I remember back in the day when it was possible to have 4 fireballs in your mage deck. I did that.
Yeah, mage. I actually played against mages that would like this had burn. I played a mage deck against a mage deck one time this month where it was almost everything in their deck was burn, and they just went face the whole time, and I just didn't have a chance.
Yep.
It was like, what? How could
It
you?
is a strategy. Mage is the best at that.
Yeah, I mean it's always been a strategy, but like in arena, you were actually offered all of those cards. What? Oh well.
Yeah.
But arena's fun. I enjoy it a lot. I'm going to try and play some more. I played so much at the beginning of the month that I really just didn't climb very much in ladder. And now I'm trying to see which will happen first, Legend or 500 Warrior wins. And I sort of asked the question tongue in cheek because I know that nobody has enough time in the last week of the month to win 100 games in Warrior. It's just not possible, I don't think, unless you just do nothing but because I have a job and family, so that's not likely possible.
Yeah, children. Think of the children.
Right. Or my marriage.
So, I mean, we didn't talk about this too much, but do you think this is going to continue happening? The buffs?
I hope
like,
so.
Is this a one-time thing that they're like, let's see how this works? Or this is like going forward, going, you know what? We made a bit of a miscalculation on this card. And maybe if we change it, it might help change the meta without having to introduce a bunch of new cards or nerf things. Like,
I think it's not even buffs. It's like mess with the cards on a regular basis. I mean, I remember Navalis had talked about that a couple weeks ago. He said that was one of the things he liked about Eternal, is that they're constantly tinkering with the cards and changing them and editing them. And he said it's not always perfect, but just when you change sometimes a card or a set of cards, it can completely flip the meta on its ear and therefore breathe new life in it. And honestly, for hardcore people who will play the game in rain, snow, sleet, or shine, good meta, bad meta, warrior prevalent, rogue prevalent, having that kind of a possibility for variety, just knowing that there's a chance for variety, just knowing that it doesn't have to be stale because they did this is I think, in my opinion, worth it for them to do that every set. I don't feel like they need to do it like this is very much the middle of the set, right? We've been around for 2 months now coming up, and I'm excited to see what they'll do.
2 things. One, they're just changing mana cost and stats. So they're worried of like you go away, you come back, and all of a sudden your favorite card does a different thing. They didn't change the writing of anything.
Yep.
So that's, they're keeping to that. And another thing, like not a ton of these cards are seeing play, and if they're seeing play, they're seeing fringe play. So it's not also like big surprise, my card is different than it was before. They're touching things that were like on the edge or just completely unplayable.
Yeah.
So that seems to be kind of the criteria. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I think that them allowing themselves to have more tools, like not making rules for themselves saying, we don't do this, but giving themselves more options and saying, how about if we try this? This might help the meta. This might help for different decks and deck builders. And because I know in the past they've talked about the fact that they need to have bad cards, right? Not every card can be good. Not every card can be perfectly statted for what it does. Just even for people to know what a good card is and a bad card is when you're making decks, to teach people about curve and value and things like that. They intentionally make cards that aren't great. So you learn that when you try and play it and it doesn't work out. So it's interesting to me that they chose to do this, but it's good.
Yeah, and I like how they just kind of did it. They just kind of announced it. There was no announcement of announcements like, hey, we're going to be buffing these cards June 3rd. And everybody's like, what? You know, this is great. I mean, I always think of like the whole community does one of the, you know, those blow up things in front of car dealerships that kind of throw their arms up in the air. Like they just kind of did that in mass unison with giant question marks over our head.
I saw the reaction on Twitter was like, what the hell is happening? And I was like, yeah. It's a good reaction.
It was a much requested, a much needed step for the game, because I think it also shows a step of goodwill towards the community, because the community can't say, well, you know, you're just kind of making your game, you're just kind of being a bunch of grumpy old men, not that they are, but, and you're going to get stuck in your ways, and this is how we're going to do our game, we're never going to do anything any different. And then they do this thing where they buff not one, not two, not three, but 18 different cards, you know. And of course, not all of them are going to really do anything, but there's enough of them that could do something, and I think that's worth the experimentation. And I've always been one to be like, change it up, completely change the card for our care, take it out of the game, change up the game, keep it interesting.
It's pretty cautious, pretty cautious changes, pretty safe changes. It's not going to like destroy Hearthstone with the things that they've done. So I think that's very careful. But maybe if this like continues to be a really positive reaction, they might get a bit more brave the next time they try to do this. And snip snap.
Although the one thing about the snip snap is the community was like, oh no, this is going to be like OTK, we're really worried. And then they just preemptively struck. I saw Zetalot was quite ticked off about that. He really wanted to try that. I think he was not happy that they just didn't even give it a chance. It's like, you didn't even let anybody play it to see, you know. But you want to know what though?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, like it was just probably better for the community not to know what that was like, because I think that might have brought up old hurts.
Absolutely.
So anyways.
Absolutely. I think like there's way too many people that are like, this is your job. You should know that this was going to happen before it happened. And if you didn't stop this before it happened, then you're not doing your yada, yada, yada. It was like, well, like they don't have a lot of play testing available to them, but they let you know Snip Snap was coming, and immediately the community figured out a broken way, and then they were like, oh, thank you for that. Thanks for figuring that one out for us, and fixed.
Yeah, I had this like movie dramatic thing playing out, like when that was discovered, like a Blizzard employee sitting at their desk looking at their phone, scrolling through their Twitter file or their Twitter feed, and then they see the post of that combo, and they look up with a horrified look, like and like a thoughtful searching expression on their face, and they immediately jump up from their desk and start running down a very long corridor, tick 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 tick, tick, and quite a few different shots of this employee just running, you know, tie flying in the air behind him. And then they they burst in the door at an important meeting, and the boss is on the phone, and he looks at him in utter surprise, like, what's going on? And he says, and he takes his phone and he shows and he points. He doesn't say anything. He just shows the phone to the boss and pointing at it like vigorously. And the boss looks at it and doesn't understand what's going on. And then he reads it, and then the boss's eyes like open up, and he's like, what have we done? You know, and then like quick, and he picks up a red phone sitting on his desk, you know, that we didn't see previously in the shot. And he dials in, hey, we didn't see this coming. Fix it now. You know what I mean? Like really dramatic. And they're like in a situation room kind of thing. You know, Hearthstone is about to die, guys. We have to fix this. We can't endure this again. You know, so that was how
I think this would be interesting if they had cards that they were worried about being problematic, and they announced them like a week ahead of time that all the community was going to have access to it. And then just was like, brains go to work. It's like crowd learning, figure out how this is broken, all the things that we couldn't have figured out before we gave it to you, just like this, and then be able to tweak it before it goes live.
Well, there's something about 1 million people looking at a problem. You're going to find a solution much
Yeah.
faster than even if you have 1,000 people looking at it. This is that exponential factor. So,
And like, how motivated are Hearthstone devs to break their own game? But Hearthstone players, on the other hand,
I mean,
very motivated.
oh yeah. I mean, every player.
All the ways.
Goes back to the days when we were all sticking game genies in our NESs, Breaking the game is fun,
I don't know about that. I just held down, what was it, the down button or the A button to give you unlimited jump? You had like a second controller, and your buddy had to like hold down certain buttons, and then you could like extra high jump, and then if you fell down chasms, you didn't die. You could just jump back out of them and like freeze the frame.
I never
and
did that.
There were some bosses in Mega Man 3 that I swear you couldn't have beat. At least I couldn't.
Mega
have
Man was
beat
hard.
without the secondary person going ultimate high jump button. Yeah.
The only two I ever beat was like Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3, and the rest of them I don't remember. I never played X and all the other stuff that followed it, but Mega Man 2 and 3 were dope.
They brought a couple back out on the PlayStation. They were like, here, try. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. It was so finicky. Like, you had to land exactly right on these different jumps so you fell to your death and started over at the beginning. I was like, how did I do this as a child? How did we play through all of those levels? Because this is ridiculous and I'm already done. Like, I'm over it.
Well, Mega Man had that
I would not go
bingo
back and
board.
play
Like,
those
you'd
games.
like reach a certain stage and it'd give you like a code. It would look like a bingo board with like blue dots and red dots on a battleship grid kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then so if you died, you could just punch the code in and you'd be back where you were because the game just would be too doggone hard. It'd be like Kaizo Mario.
You'd start with like certain amount of bosses already defeated and things like that. Yeah.
It was a save
Oh
state.
my
That's all it
goodness.
was. It was just a manual save state. So,
Yeah, makes sense. Nowadays we have autosave.
well, let's see, Eve, we're at an hour and 20 minutes. So much for a half hour to an hour show today.
Gosh.
Oh, jeez.
That's how it always starts. We're like, we don't have much to talk about. We probably won't get into a deck of the week. We'll just chat and then, call it a night early.
Yeah, we don't have a deck of the week, mostly because what I wanted to talk about was a hunter thing, and I think I'd rather get a hunter expert because I know quite a few of them. So I'm gonna reach out to him probably tomorrow, maybe even tonight, to get a hunter expert because that's what I want to do next week because I want to talk about the role of hunter in the meta. Also, really,
Speaking of hunters.
yeah. Speaking of hunters, what?
I just wanted to pass on what one of the listeners in Discord said to me was that apparently one of the hunter enemies in the new Dalaran Adventure says, oh, it's if you're a hunter and you go up against them, he says to you, you're a hunter, where's your golden gun? Which is a reference to Destiny.
Dun, dun, dun.
So now I'm like, I want to look for all the interactions and see if there's any more Easter eggs and call outs. That's so cool.
Yeah,
So
I
sorry,
can't even
interrupted
play.
you. Go
I
on.
can't even play the heist without the sound on because I just want to know everything that they say, because that's half the charm of that activity is just the funny, goofy things that they say. Like I can't even remember it because it's so memey, but it's just pure joy to sit there going giggling at your phone when you're playing.
I went up against Millhouse's ex, and I had Millhouse in my deck.
Oh my goodness.
And he immediately is drawn out onto the board if he's in your deck. And she's like, aha, it's you. And he's like, save me. Hide me from her. You have to take her down. And it was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
It was so good.
That's so good. Okay, I want to play that. I got to get through some of the content. I'm such a tryhard. I have the content even paid for it. I just haven't been playing it. And the third wing just been released. I think it was yesterday. So.
And The Rock is the innkeeper?
The Rock?
Like Dwayne The Rock Johnson does the voice for, like, how there's like friendly inns periodically through the game that you can stop.
Huh.
And that's the voice of The Rock.
What? I didn't even pick up on that. Why am I so dense?
Next time you listen to it.
I will. I thought the voice sounded familiar. Like, man, I know that voice. Maybe because he wasn't a singing, Polynesian. I don't know. So
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you ever get the chance, I know I said this on the other show, I probably did, but choose the ball, the Wonder Ball with Khadgar. So much fun.
I want to do, must do. Yeah, I like it because it's so far my experience with the heist is that it's not. I haven't played heroic mode, but it's pretty enjoyable. It's not very stressful. If you lose a game, you feel like you.
Yeah, that's my experience that whenever there is a heroic mode, then the regular mode is much more user friendly and fun. And actually, my son, who is 10 years old, saw me playing and he was like, "Can I play, Mom?" And my kids never ask to play Hearthstone. And I was like, "Yeah, totally." And he ended up like taking the iPad up into his bedroom and like playing until 8:30 at night and was telling me how many bosses he got down. He was so excited. And he just learned how to play better Hearthstone by playing against the AI.
Interesting.
Because to begin with, he was not making very good plays. Like, I didn't want to sit over his shoulder and be like, "Oh, don't
be
do
a
that."
noob.
I just
Stop
let
that.
him do
Get
it.
out of my way. I'm gonna do this for you.
And I let him like lose and figure out, but he wasn't getting frustrated and he wasn't getting upset. And he just like did it again and was so happy how many bosses he got down and told me how many things he'd won. And yeah, so, I mean, if you've got kids, definitely they don't have to have a deck. They don't have to have the stress of going against another player. They can take as long as they want because there's no rope. They can pause and do it later. Like, this is a perfect way to ease your kids into Hearthstone if you just want to give them something fun and safe.
That's true. So, like, I was thinking about that. You know, my kids are at the age where they're, you know, addition and subtraction, multiplication is sort of their wheelhouse right now for math in school. And Hearthstone, you know, you want to teach them to add up health and damage and lethal and all that stuff. And a child can't do it as fast as an adult. So when they're playing like quick play, or I say quick play, it's like me playing like against an actual opponent, then it's harder for them to do it in the time that they need to really sit there and figure it out, because they collect data slowly too. You know, an adult looks at the board state and can immediately figure out everything they're doing. You know,
Grant, I hate to argue with you, but I'm gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
You maybe. A lot of adults I know, including myself, are not that good at math. My son was standing over my shoulder going, "Mom, you have lethal."
Oh, and you say, very good.
Because
Pat
he
on
and
the
his brother are really good at math. Like, ever since they were little, they get it from their dad. Like, they're all really good at math. But me and my daughter are like counting on our fingers. So,
Well,
yeah, I do not like automatically know that I have lethal. There have been times in the past where I've like gone with a gut feeling and had exact lethal, but didn't count it out because it would have taken too long and just been like, I think I've got it there if I like maximize the amount of damage I can possibly do, and then had exact lethal. But there's also been times when I've been one off.
You're like, wait, no.
Which feels real
That
bad.
does feel bad. I've done that before. Well, I mean, I guess you're right. Not everybody can do it, you know, that fast. But the point was more like,
it gives your kids more time to count.
And doing quick math in their head like that, and with like simple numbers like 4s and 6s and stuff like that, is very, very good for them. You know what I mean? And in getting the hook of, yeah, this is how you play the game. If you want to play the game, you got to do math. It's just kind of like, you want to play an RPG, got to be able to read. I mean, I got to, you know.
Yes. I used it to teach my kids how to read. They're like, "I want to play Legend of Zelda." I'm like, not until you read all the quest text.
Not reading it for you.
Because you're not skipping past all of the quest text and then going, "Mom, I don't know where to go and what to do."
Yep.
And I'm not going to tell you. You have to read.
And furthermore, it's not just being able to read, it's reading with comprehension. So you have to be able to interpret what you're reading and understand it. Because if you don't, well.
And they use decently big words.
Oh, yes.
In RPGs, you know? It's not just kid language. It's large words. So they have to sound them out sometimes. So, yeah, games. Teach your kids how to read and how to do
For
math.
all you old curmudgeons running around out there that say video games have no value. Of course, you're not listening to this show because, you know. But the people you know who are curmudgeonly about that, video games do actually have value in regular everyday life. And the sermon is over. So
Words my kids learned before they knew how to read: save and the end.
Nice.
Or no, was it game over? Maybe it was game.
Oh, because just the way it looks on the screen.
Yeah, like they didn't know how to read yet, but they knew what those words meant.
My son is that way. My 5-year-old, he does things like that. He knows how to navigate menus, and he shouldn't be able to because he can't read a word. But he knows the shape of the form of the word, almost like it's a symbol.
Right? That's why intuitive things are so good, because you don't have to really know. You can just get it.
This is true.
That makes sense. Yeah, so I pretended that I knew when he stood over my shoulder and he was like, "Mom, why are you still putting cards down? You have lethal. Just attack its face." I was like, "I know that. I'm just playing on my cards against this AI who doesn't care how many cards I have. I just like all the interactions and the things they say when they go down." And then I hit him for lethal in the face. I was like, "Damn it."
I would have turned into like, "I'm proud of you for doing math so well and fast. You have a future, son."
Oh, Grant, see, that was so much better than what I did.
Yeah, but that's because I had a chance to think about it. I'm not saying I would have done anything different than you. So.
Oh, me, I'm like protecting my pride, being like, "Yeah, I knew that. That's fine."
It's all good. I think my daughter's done that a couple times to me. She's sort of a smarty pants, though. She's one of those kids that takes special pride in ousting an adult. So.
Don't they all? Isn't that like universally I noticed something you didn't?
I was that child, so I guess turnabout is fair play.
Oh, not me. Not me. Your parents obviously didn't react too extremely to mouthy children.
Well, no, you see, I wasn't mouthy per se. I liked to catch people on technicalities. So it was like I was the kid who got spanked if I interrupted adults talking. Don't get me wrong. Adults are talking.
Okay,
I mean,
right. So we are.
My father
on the
would
same
turn
page.
down and look down at me and like raise his eyebrows, and then we get in the car. He's like, "What have I told you about interrupting adults who are talking?" Don't. Yep, that's right. Now, what do you want me to do about that? That was how the conversation always went. Not spank me when I get home, So,
It's worse when they ask you for the punishment yourself. You're like,
sentence yourself.
What can
Go.
I think of that's not gonna take away my books for a week?
No books for like for me, I'd have been like, fine. Nah, it was usually a SWAT or 2 or 3, depending on the severity of the crime.
Yeah.
My dad would let it hang though. We'd get home from church or something like that, and then I wouldn't hear about it for hours. And we'd be talking, and he wasn't even angry. It wasn't like there was no emotion involved. It was like, you did the thing that was wrong, you get punished, and I'll just punish you when the time feels right. And he would look at me and go like, "Oh yeah, spanking. Go to your room. I'll meet you in 5 minutes." And then,
oh my gosh, that's so.
And so then we get spanked, and that was that. And it was not.
I mean, it's probably better that way than in the heat of the moment when they're doing it because they're angry and frustrated. But man, that seems like torture.
So as a kid, you're sitting there going, "Did he forget? Is there a statute of limitations here?
If I go to sleep tonight and I wake up tomorrow, I don't still get spanked. Sure. It happened yesterday." Yeah.
No, there was never that. Like, there was never like, if there was punishment, it would have been doled out the day of. There was no like waiting to think about it. So, which I always appreciated. There was not, and I mean, because there's a certain amount of injustice a kid would feel like, he waited till tomorrow,
Yeah. Our sense of time at an early age was like, that was years ago.
Might as well have been.
It's in the past.
That was yesterday. It doesn't count today, Anyways.
Listeners, you now have had a taste of what happens after we stop recording. And usually, if you are a guest, you have been a part of this conversation. So welcome to Talkstone.
We're going to call it Grant and Eve's extended family section. Family time section. How to raise kids via games.
Welcome to our family.
Family forum. I don't know. If we were really diligent about keeping our show super segmented, I would say, let's have a segment show like Hearthstone and the family for this week or something like that. I don't know if that would even be worth doing, but.
Well, no, you know what? If I'm going to be honest, the listeners, you guys have given us very positive feedback about the times where we talked about how gaming impacts our life, how it impacts raising children, our family, our time, our work. Like, this is something that a lot of people our age and younger are trying to deal with, that are like, I really like gaming, but life, and how do you make that work, and how do you, all the things. So yeah, we generally have really positive feedback about people that are like, well, I mean, some of them are, please don't ever talk about the weather again. That we can do without.
I live in Texas. You live in Canada. It's not possible to not talk about the weather. But
I'm holding it back. I'm holding it back because yesterday's weather was crazy, but I won't say a word
Yeah.
about it.
It has to be exceptional, I guess. Well, for the longest time, it was Rob with crazy Japan, typhoon stuff,
Flooding. Typhoons, landslides,
and then myself with almost
mudslides.
the same thing, hurricanes and stuff like that. We had Harvey, right?
And we've got forest fires over here, so
You guys got forest fires and blizzards. Hey.
if it's not one extreme, it's the other.
So, how does that affect your gaming? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We probably should wrap this up before we basically, open a whole new can of worms on, I don't know, how to like put your kid through college or something silly like that. So, saving money via not playing video games next week. Anyways, I'm gonna stop right now. Eve, sign us off quick before I dig us another hole.
Not all who wander are lost. Follow us on Velen's shows and Jockey.
Yes.
Bye.
Do that. Bye, everybody.
I foresaw this. Did I miss it?
Oh gosh. And the train comes to a speeding halt by hitting another train. That was going the exact same speed metrically. And they're both listening to Velen's Chosen. And both conductors are getting distracted by the inane rambling of the hosts. How fast are the trains going after an hour and 30 minutes? And if they're going the same, does it stop the show? This is true. I always find myself enjoying the show more than I think I'm going to, if that makes any sense. I find myself enjoying the show and the conversation more than I think I'm going to. Like in my mind, the show is always very sterile. It's always like, okay, this is the topic matter, this is the news, this is the talking points, and then like we get into the discussion, and it's always more interesting than I'm ready for it to be, if that makes any sense. This is true. It takes a life of its own, and I'm going to actually stop recording now and